Welcome to our daily reflection for this Saturday, August 2nd. And we've been hearing in the Old Testament readings this week of the laws that the Torah had for worship. And then we find one of these great festivals that's a rare one, but it's one celebrated every 50 years, and that's the Great Jubilee, the Jubilee year. And so there, after 7 weeks of years, 7 times 7 is 49, the 50th year is to be a Jubilee. And on that year, all debts were to be canceled, all slaves set free, and all prisoners released. And it was a year of release and mercy. And we might ask ourselves, well, what did this law mean? What was it for? Well, there's great pragmatism in it. And in fact, one of the things that God knows in His wisdom is that in human society, in any country, any society, debt can accumulate, and debt can be crushing, and debt can create bondage and slavery. And so by having all debts canceled every 50 years, it keeps debt from snowballing into creating social chaos and havoc and bondage and perpetuating people's bondage. You know, if your grandfather lost the family farm and was indebted, then you would grow up in poverty, and that cycle of poverty would be almost impossible to break in an agrarian society, and you might be born a slave. And so the idea is God did not want to perpetuate the mistakes and sins of a generation into all generations, and so land would be given back as an inheritance to that family if someone lost their family farm after 50 years. And then on those 50 years, debts would be canceled, slaves would be released. And so it was breaking the bondage of perpetual slavery, and that is what happens with debt. In fact, the reason for this legislation is actually what God did for Israel in the Exodus. Israel found themselves as a nation enslaved to the Egyptians, indebted and enslaved. And so God is freeing them from slavery and debts and bringing back to their ancient patrimonial inheritance, the land of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So what God has done for Israel in the Exodus, Israel is to do every 50 years as a perpetual exodus, an internal exodus for the poorest of the poor. And so the Jubilee protects the poor. It's, in a sense, as St. John Paul II once observed, it is the beginning of the church's social teaching. And so social justice of caring for the poor is all embodied here in the Jubilee legislation. And of course, we know that our own redemption is Jesus bringing about the Great Jubilee, setting us free from the debt of sin. And so we have all been redeemed by the Great Jubilee. And of course, today, this year is still in 2025, a Jubilee year of hope. And so we can make pilgrimage and experience the release of the debt of temporal punishment for our sins. And so we can make prayers and to make a pilgrimage. And so it is a great time to do that. I've made a pilgrimage to Rome and went through the Jubilee doors, which is about saying certain prayers and certain spiritual actions that we may have a temporal release of punishment and have a Jubilee year. And so find out, even dioceses have places of pilgrimage. If you can't make it all the way to Jerusalem or Rome, you can make a Jubilee pilgrimage in your own diocese. Find out which parishes and what the prayers are and requirements of going to confession, etc., that you can do in this Jubilee year of hope. May the Lord bless and keep you.
This daily reflection is brought to you thanks to the generous support of the Mission Circle. Join the Mission Circle to help Catholics worldwide understand, live, and share their faith. Sign up at missioncircle.org today.